All right, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and the Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Bone Rattle by Marc Cameron. This is book number 3 in his Arliss Cutter Alaskan mystery series. I have all 3 books here. Maybe you saw my review of Open Carry not long ago on the channel, and also Stone Cross. Now we got book 3, Bone Rattle. They all 3 look great on the shelf together. They've got great graphic design, great covers, great Alaskan wilderness scenes on the covers, and if we put them all together this way, the spines all match. So we got to give props to the publisher for keeping a consistent look to this series, at least for the first 3 books. And the cover of this one's good. You know, I love graphic design and cover illustration, so we already went over that. What's this book about? Well, it's about buttermilk biscuit recipes for buttermilk. The actual title is Grumpy Cutter's Flaky Square Buttermilk Biscuits. And if you don't like that, there's a wonderful recipe for some venison stew. But the book is way more than that. Let's start out with what is Open Carry? Well, Open Carry, set in Alaska. Stone Cross, set in Alaska. I love Alaskan mysteries. I grew up the early part of my youth in Alaska. So there's a lot I can relate to with these books. This book especially. It opens up south of Juneau on, they're building a road through the mountains, south of Juneau or north of Juneau, somewhere around Juneau. They're building a road, and usually when people are building a road through untracked territory, there's a lot of archaeologists that sort of sniff around to see if anything will be dug up that they can explore or whatever. What happens is the archaeologist as this road is being built, finds some Native American bone shards and some bones, plus a bone rattle. Now, the bone rattle is, the archaeologist believes that the bone rattle is made from the horn of an Alaskan Dall sheep. But the archaeologist is like, well, I don't know if Dall sheep are necessarily native to this part of Alaska, so there's a lot of mysteries here. We've got to stop this construction of this road. We need to figure out whose these bones are. Maybe there's more. Maybe there was a whole village of Native Alaskans that once lived here. Who knows? But we got to stop the road crew from tearing up this place because of the bone rattle. And one of the things I liked about, well, so there's a couple of things we're going to discuss just about the setup here. Let's talk about the bone rattle first. The archaeologist believes that the bone rattle was fashioned from the horn of a Alaskan Dall sheep. Now, if you don't know what an Alaskan Dall sheep is, just picture a regular old Rocky Mountain bighorn, but it's pure white. And they typically live up in the Brooks Range of Alaska, or way up above in the Arctic Circle in Alaska and Canada. They're those brilliant white bighorn sheep. Beautiful animals. My dad used to, when I lived in Alaska, we used to go hunting for Dall sheep up in the Brooks Range. I would tag along with my dad. I was too young to hunt, but I tagged along with my dad as we would fly the bush plane up into Bettles and then further up into the Brooks Range, way above the Arctic Circle. And we would hunt these Dall sheep in the rugged wilderness of the Brooks Range, which are jagged mountains where these Dall sheep just flourish. Anyway. That's the one connection I have to the book. The other connection I have to the book is the actual road crew being stopped by the archaeologist so they can do an archaeology dig and figure out where these Native American artifacts are coming from before they pave over them. When I was growing up in my later years in Sevier County, Utah, I-70 was being built across the Tusher Mountain Range down in Sevier County, Utah, and some Fremont Indian pottery and bones and arrowheads were discovered in the path of the freeway. So they literally shut down the building of I-70 for about 3 or 4 years while archaeologists came in and dug up that entire area to make sure that they got all of the Indian artifacts out of there before they paved over it with I-70, which I'm glad that they did, because now there's a great Fremont Indian State Park down in Sevier County, right to the side of the freeway, that you can visit, and you can see all of those things that they got from that archaeology dig. Not only that, but up in the Red Rock Canyons, you can take hiking trails up and see the petroglyphs and hieroglyphs and everything they discovered up there. So I'm glad that they stopped the freeway construction to preserve the Native American heritage of the Fremont Indians that were in the pathway of Interstate 70. This is the setup for the murder mystery that takes place in Bone Rattle, because the archaeologist finds that bone rattle, he finds the Native American Indian shards, he wants to stop production of this roadway, and the roadway foreman is like, great, yes, let's do that. Let's stop production on this very expensive project while you dig around for the next 3 or 4 years for Indian artifacts. He's like, yes, we're on board. But then they make the archaeologists disappear. Well, they kill him. They disappear that guy. And so no more, the road will no longer be stalled. And so they get to just plow ahead, and they just bury the stuff that the archaeologists found, except for one of the road crew guys smuggles that bone rattle out of there, which becomes the second part of our mystery. So now we've got a missing archaeologist, a bone rattle that this guy is trying to, because this kid has watched, Antiques Roadshow enough to know that the bone rattle is worth a lot. And so he's trying to take it to pawn shops and things like this, which gets it starts to be a red flag to people. Now, another thing I'm going to talk about is this very same setup, an archaeology dig and a roadway that was being going to pave over ancient Indian artifacts, is actually, believe it or not, part of the plot to my horror novel, South Sevier, which I wrote 20 years ago. It's about the same thing. It's about the I-70 project paving over the top of ancient Indian ruins and waking up some ancient Indian legends and prophecies, and well, it turns into a horror novel. Anyway, so I just thought that was an interesting connection between the opening of this and the setup for the murder here. And 20 years ago, I wrote a similar setup in South Sevier. Okay, let's jump to, oh, by the way, folks, South Sevier is not available anywhere to buy, purchase, or read. This is the first ever novel that I ever wrote. It's a junk novel. It's garbage. If I ever do publish it, I will have to rewrite the whole thing, because I just printed out a few copies for myself. So don't go looking for this book thinking that it's something you can buy. You can't. Anyway, let's jump to Arliss Cutter and the Fugitive Task Force, because this, after all, is the Arliss Cutter series, and we've spent the first half of the video just talking about the setup to the murder and how it compares to a lot of things that I've done and seen in my own life. Arliss Cutter is the part of the Fugitive Task Force in Anchorage, Alaska. We open up with the prologue, which I described, and now we jump to Anchorage, where Arliss Cutter, and I love this about Cameron's books, each one spends about 5 or 6 chapters just with Arliss Cutter and his SWAT team as they go looking for fugitives in and around Anchorage. They go looking for all of the ne'er-do-wells, and they capture them, and the weird things happen, and they have lots of adventures. So we get to see that side of them. But then Arliss Cutter and his companion in the SWAT force, they get sent down to Juneau, Alaska, to sort of be bodyguards for some jury members that are involved in a trial that's happening in Juneau. And they're worried for their safety because weird things happening in Juneau. And the weird things that are happening in Juneau involve state senators, lobbyists, a shady mining company that has ties to a roadway up through the mountains that may or may not have paved over some ancient Indian ruins. So things are going on down in Juneau that need to be straightened out by Arliss Cutter and Nola Fontaine. Or is it Lola Fontaine? I can't remember. Her name reminds me of a stripper name, though. Nola Fontaine, Lola Fontaine, whatever it is. They go down there to help with this jury trial. Whilst they're down there, they start to get hints of other things that are going on. For instance, the Bone Rattle and the kid that's trying to pawn off the Bone Rattle. Because, like I said, he's been watching some antiques roadshows, and he knows this Bone Rattle might be worth a hell of a lot of money. In fact, he's asking for $500,000 for it, which is a big red flag. People are like, there's this dude thinks he can sell us this Bone Rattle for $500,000. Now, sure, it's rare, and sure, it might be worth that, but ain't no way I'm giving him $500,000 for it, because we don't know where he got it. We need to know where he got it, because wherever he got it from, that place should probably be explored, and maybe an archaeology team should go out there and see if there's more stuff. And so the kid that smuggled the Bone Rattle didn't really think it through all the way. But anyway, another thing that happens in these books is there's these mines. And if you're familiar, this is another comparison I have to my own novels. If you're familiar with my books, you know that my characters go into ancient gold mines and silver mines all the time. Not only that, but they even go in and out of glaciers and underneath glaciers, and they travel through glaciers. And they get into some harrowing adventures underneath the earth. That happens here too, and I loved it. Marc Cameron takes us into some of the most claustrophobic, dark, dank, musty, dangerous, and wet mining adventures that you'll ever read about. I was gripping the book as I was reading when these characters went into these mines and the mines were filling up with water, and oh my God, I am frightened. I am not a spelunker at all. I've been in abandoned gold mines down in Sevier County, and they are scary as hell. You don't want to go into them, especially if they're starting to fill up with water. Anyway, just another great addition to the Arliss Cutter mystery series. Again, I loved Open Carry. I loved Stone Cross. This one is even better. I actually liked it more than the other two. So again, I have to give this a 10 out of 10. These Arliss Cutter Alaskan mysteries are just fucking dope.